Hello friends, and welcome to the Instructional Design course. In this course, we have got for you a number of audio-visual sessions and also a number of assignments that we want you to complete. The first session is Introduction to ID. So let's go ahead. Let's look at some of the definitions of instructional design. The first definition. Instructional design is a systematic approach to the production of instructional units or courseware for specific user groups. Instructional design is a process whereby the student interacts with the course material and a behavioral change occurs. This definition is given by Maggs and his team. The second definition. Instructional design is a self-correcting systems approach that seeks to apply scientifically derived principles to the planning, design, creation, implementation, and evaluation of effective and efficient instructions. This definition is given by Schrock, and this is my favorite, which is given by McArdle. Instructional design, simply defined, means using a systematic process to understand a human performance problem, figuring out what to do about it, and then doing something about it. So what really is instructional design? In instructional design, you develop instructions. These instructions will then be used by students, and then the students get trained. In other words, you are designing training material. But are you going to design purely instructions or something else as well? Let's go to the next slide. The field of instructional design is also called as instructional development, instructional technology, educational technology, and so on and so forth. Role of an instructional designer. As an instructional designer, what would you be doing? You would be developing the courseware or the instructional units that the students are going to use. So, you play multiple roles here. You play the role of a student because you yourself will need to learn that content. You play the role of a coordinator during the ID development. What does that mean? You would probably have a number of people working with you or reporting to you as a part of the ID process. So you'll probably have people who are doing programming, people who are developing graphics, people who are going to develop videos, audios, quizzes, and so on. So you'll need to coordinate with all of them. You should be a good critic because you should be able to critically look at the content that has been developed, find out the weak areas, and then improvise. You should be able to work as a guide to your team. As we said earlier, there could be a number of people reporting to you, and they are probably going to ask you what is exactly that you are going to expect. Now, one thing that you should not be is the subject matter expert yourself. Because if you are a subject matter expert, you'll probably end up in a dilemma of trying to explain everything related to that subject. Many subject matter experts, by virtue of being the experts, have an intimate contact with the subject matter and they think everything is important. Whereas as an ID, as an instructional designer, you'll perhaps need to take a third person's point of view and then find out what really is critical and explain that to more emphasis as compared to the other topics. A good instructional designer should have these skills. What are these? Training skills, writing skills, interpersonal skills, visualizing skills, logical linking ability, logical thinking ability, a student's approach, and experience, which is a must. Let's explain each one of them in a bit more detail. Training skills. You as an instructional designer should have got some experience in training. Otherwise, you'll probably not end up designing the training material to the best result As an instructional designer, you'll perhaps need to write some scripts and even prepare some storyboards. Now this means you'll need to have writing skills. As we discussed earlier, you'll probably be working with a team. So needless to say that you'll need to have interpersonal skills to be able to talk to them, coordinate with them, and get the work done. You'll need to have visualizing skills, because as an ID, you'll not only be working with text, you'll probably be working with videos. You could also be working with some graphics, and you'll need to explain to the graphic designer what kind of graphic you want, what color schemes you want, what kind of pictures or icons do you want to use in that graphic, what kind of user interface you would want for that training material, and so on. Logical thinking ability. You should be able to prepare a lesson structure and an exercise structure which is arranged as per the hierarchy of training objectives. Well, we almost defined a term there. We are going to work with this particular term, training objective, in one of the subsequent sessions in this training course. To be a successful instructional designer, a student's approach would be a must. An experience would be a must. If you want to be a successful ID, you should have contributed to the development of training content in various capacities. Maybe you should have worked as a junior ID under somebody else. To give you the experience of what ID process is like and what kind of training content and material is developed, we have included enough number of assignments in this course. Well, there is one assignment coming up for you right at the end of this session. Just hang on for a moment. Right now, let's look at the next slide. Where did your learning start? Probably from the birth. And I am sure that it will continue forever. That's the reason that many learning theories talk about children's development. Now, let's look at a very interesting diagram. I want you to pause here and take a look at this diagram for a while. Also, try to draw this diagram in your notebook. Alright, let's look at the explanation now. So this is the model of human memory system. As you can see, there are multiple sensor registers, sensory registers which are getting the input. Now, if you pay attention to those sensory registers, that input is going to your working or short-term memory. From there, it will go to your long-term memory. Now, if you are able to do meaningful learning and rehearsal, those inputs will probably also come back to your short-term memory. Remember, from each of these layers, those input could be directly lost, which means the inputs could probably be lost directly from the sensory registers, or it may go to the working or short-term memory, but unless you actually perform things like quizzes, evaluations, exams, and so on, they'll probably not go to your long-term memory. Again, if this is something that you have not practiced again and again, all that information will again be lost after some time. So you would remember that when you were a kid, you have learnt a considerable part of knowledge of science, history, geography, and so on. Tell me, how much of that do you still remember? But since you have passed that exam and since you have come thus far, I am sure that at some point of time it was definitely there in your working or short-term memory. This diagram underlines the importance of meaningful learning and also of learning resources like assignments, quizzes, and so on. There are different types of instructional design theories. They can be classified into cognitive theories, behavioral theories, and motivational theories. In this session, we are not going to discuss the various theories. We have separate sessions for that. Let's go ahead. That brings me to the end of this session, but before we close, I want you to attempt the quiz which is related to this session. I also want you to complete assignment number 1. This assignment may take about 10 or 15 hours for you to complete. Once you have completed the assignment, you can mail it to me. My mail ID is mac, that is MAK @technowrites.com. Once you have sent that assignment to me, you can start with the next session, and the next session is going to be study of the existing ID material. If you have not received this ID material, send me a mail and I'll be able to send that material to you. Good luck.